On this week's dose, we have Mike Panos, Vice President of Operations at SkyFi, which is an Earth intelligence platform that provides user-friendly access to geospatial data to everyone from individuals to SMBs to large enterprises and even government agencies.
Yeah, Mike starts off by telling us about his impressive professional journey, including serving in the U.S. Navy for 10 years and getting an MBA from Harvard before moving to Austin to eventually join the SkyFi team.
Then he gets into SkyFi's core product offering, as well as their goal of bridging the gap between the huge demand for geospatial data and the supply from the satellite operators themselves, which have their hands full as is working with large government contracts.
We also get to hear about SkyFi's growth plans and how Mike sees them fitting into the broader growth of the satellite and geospatial data industry in the coming years.
Lastly, stick with us for a sneak peek into some upcoming exciting news for the SkyFi team. Definitely stay tuned there.
Oh, yeah.
As well as some valuable advice from Mike to anyone looking to get into venture capital.
Yeah, it was a pleasure having Mike join us on this week's dose and to hear more about his journey as well as the exciting developments going on at SkyFi. Without further ado, here's our conversation with Mike.
You see here, kid, you gotta just go for it. Don't think about what comes after or what came before. You just gotta bend your knees, take a deep breath, and jump.
This is Venture Pill, your weekly dose of startups and venture capital. We break down recent startups in the news and interview founders and investors to help you stay informed in the evolving world of venture. On this week's dose, we have Mike Panos, Vice President of Operations at SkyFi, which is an Earth intelligence platform that integrates diverse data sources, leverages AI-driven analytics, and provides user-friendly access to geospatial imagery for global enterprise customers as well as government agencies in order to provide meaningful impact. Quite an impressive company. Mike, thanks for joining us. How's it going?
Yeah, going really well. Nice to meet you guys, and thanks for having me on the episode.
Likewise, and our pleasure. Let's jump right in here. Doing some research on you. You have a super impressive resume. I'm not going to steal your thunder. Would love to hear a little bit more about your story of your professional journey and how you ultimately ended up at your role with SkyFi.
Yeah, totally. Appreciate it. A little bit of an interesting background, or maybe a non-standard background to kind of get to where I am in the tech industry. So started off my career in the military, spent 10 years in the Navy, was a Naval Academy grad, did 10 years out mostly in San Diego. I was a helicopter pilot. Flying this little guy, for those watching on the video here. It's the Navy's version of the Black Hawk called the Seahawk. So did a couple of deployments on aircraft carriers with that. Did a flight instructor stint, and then did a deployment with a special operations unit before getting out of the military in 2017. I've been doing Navy Reserve since then, so I kind of have one foot in and one foot out. Decided to try my hand at something else. Went out to Harvard and got my MBA as kind of an interim break, figure out what I wanted to do with my life kind of stage, and then moved down to Austin, where I joined a company called Spark Cognition, which is an industrial AI company. It's since rebranded and focusing more on logistics and supply chain, but there is a lot of kind of industrial processes and anomaly detection, kind of smart monitoring systems. Did some program management, a little bit of product management, and then finished up with some ops and strategy before coming over to SkyFi. SkyFi, as you led in the intro, we're an Earth intelligence platform, and you're building out a geospatial data platform for the world. I originally joined that company in April of 2022. So I've been with the company for just about 2.5 years, a little bit over 2.5 years. Originally the chief of staff, did that for a year, and then took over the operations team. And then 6 months after that, added the product team. So it's been a really fun journey, and learning a ton, which is exactly what I wanted to do, is getting into the tech world and transitioning out of the military. So it's definitely been what I'm looking for.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we're curious also how you got connected with SkyFi in the first place to there in Austin, and what drew you to the industry and the mission?
So kind of a happenstance, getting connected to the company and to the founders and kind of the early employees of it. At the time, I was just kind of putting some feelers out there, looking primarily for chief of staff roles and things that would seem interesting, a little bit industry agnostic, and kind of open to different companies. If it was interesting enough and presented a challenge and kind of a learning opportunity there. So I'd been putting some feelers out and doing a couple of interviews, but was reading one of the Austin tech newsletters. Can't remember which one. It was either Built in Austin or Austin NO, one of those, and going over the the recent funding rounds and moves within the Austin ecosystem. That was the first mention of SkyFi as they were coming out of stealth with the first bit of pre-seed money. So did a little bit of research from there, and I say it was happenstance because I would usually just skim those newsletters, or sometimes would put through them in my email. That day decided to kind of read the whole thing and saw the link to SkyFi, and they had an impressive website for a pre-seed company, and started doing a little bit more research on that, and got connected with one of the early employees on LinkedIn, and he really just wanted to learn more about the company. Got on a phone call with him. Told him about what I was looking for, the types of opportunities that would be interesting. He said, "Well, you have a similar background to Luke, our CEO. Like, why don't you guys just have a phone call and kind of see where it goes?" And so I had a phone call with Luke. Was not really anticipating it being necessarily an interview. Luke probably thought it was more of an interview than I did. I guess advice to anyone out there, like if you're ever taking just a phone call, like treat it like an interview, because it could turn into something really interesting. But yeah, talked to Luke, kind of let him know what I was looking for. It matched up with a role that he was thinking about, but hadn't yet posted. So we talked about what that could entail, and kind of went from there and talked to others in the company. And I think what really drew me to SkyFi is, one, the geospatial industry is super, interesting just in general. I didn't know a whole lot about it. I'd been previously a user of geospatial data in my time in the military, maps and, creating, flight plans and charts and whatnot. So using that, but, not necessarily always having like up-to-date information. Was kind of whatever was available, through the government bureaucracy to get access to it. So I thought it was a really kind of a unique mission to kind of make that data more accessible to everybody, from government users like myself, which was not the focus at the time, but I could see those applications, to commercial users, and just whether it's individuals or businesses that have a need to kind of see near real time around the world, for whatever they're doing. So I was not really looking at the geospatial industry, but in talking with Luke and Bill, who's our other co-founder of SkyFi, you realize that these are very successful people who have been had done pretty interesting things and amazing things in their previous careers. Bill's he's a hedge fund trader. He's professional poker player, author, kind of multi-talented person. Luke had been was at Stanford after some time in the military. Was at Uber Elevate and Joby Aviation and doing some really awesome things there. So the fact that they decided to put their time and effort and capital into SkyFi, really made me think that this is something that could catch on. So that was really what drew me to SkyFi, is just the caliber of the people that decided to take on this venture. And so that was what cast my vote to really join the company.
Yeah, no, that's an awesome story, and you definitely have to prepare double as much as you would for a phone call with a professional poker player. That's a next level of strategic phone call and interviewing. Diving a little bit deeper into SkyFi, the mission being to make satellite imagery and analytics more accessible across various industries. And you have started talking about geospatial, but it's still pretty kind of complex tech if you're looking at it from the outside. So how do you achieve this in practice? And I guess also what sets you apart from other competitors in the space?
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. The geospatial industry and kind of community and the user base tends to be very technical. We're talking about satellites and orbital mechanics, imagery specifications, all types of the data that powers all of this is quite technical. So really trying to make it more accessible can be a challenge, and there is a very large customer education gap to solve. Those that are within the industry, that's not as much, or users that have kind of grown up using this type of data, understand it. They get the limitations, they get the benefits, they know what they can and can't do with it, and really it's easier to manage those expectations for the kind of the expert users. But as we're trying to grow adoption and make it accessible to businesses and individuals who have not used the data previously, there is quite a bit of a gap between, and the movie industry does not do us any favors. I'll just say, like, if you're watching a movie, a spy movie, and it's showing real-time satellite feeds of being able to read like a license plate. Wow, I'll just say it's not true. So we get a lot of kind of inflated expectations around what you can and can't do with it. But there are some really awesome applications, which I'm sure we'll get into some of those in this episode. But I think what one of the benefits of SkyFi is most of us don't come from the geospatial industry. We become geospatial experts just over the last 3 years or so that SkyFi has been a company, but we don't come from the geospatial world aside from a handful of folks at SkyFi. Most are from the broader tech industry, whether it's consumer or B2B tech. So understand what it takes to build a user interface and a user experience for an individual who's used to using, whether it's an app on an iPhone or typical web apps or B2B SaaS software, building it with those users in mind to either abstract away some of the technical items or build APIs that those more technical users can access in order to accomplish their workflows. But for the main interface being something that's simple, minimizes friction, minimizes button clicks. And if a customer has to reach out to support because they don't understand something, then we failed at what we were trying to do within the product. So really listening to the customer and taking that feedback and trying to build it with their best their interest in mind, and not necessarily those of the geospatial industry, which I think is something that the industry is getting better about, but it's typically been built for geospatial experts by geospatial experts.
Got it. And from our understanding, what we could tell from the website, notice a couple of companies among the handful that you guys partner with, like the actual satellite companies, are the ones with the satellites in space, and you guys are the ones kind of aggregating the imagery and making it available as part of this platform play. Is that kind of, are we reading that right, or can you explain a little bit further how you partner with those companies, specifically Albedo and Umbra? I recognize from Austin. I know
from
those
the Austin,
guys.
Ecosystem here. Yeah, they're great partners, and you're definitely right. We're so we are an aggregator. We're a platform. In some senses, a marketplace, which is really where SkyFi got its start. Is more of a pure marketplace. And as we've realized through customer discovery and as we've dealt with more enterprise customers, they're really looking for a platform where they can both get the data, but also work with that data and start to build workflows around that, so they don't need to take the data, go to another platform, and manage all different vendors and different software stacks for that to kind of be a one-stop shop for all of that. So we don't have satellites ourselves. We don't have ground stations that we own or operate. We partner with those companies who have the expertise in building satellites, and we take care of the customer for them. So a lot of their sales teams and kind of the way that they're built is to go after really large government contracts, really large enterprises that are looking for multi-year deals, and in the 7+ figures is kind of their sweet spot for customers. We're seeing these satellite companies, just from a customer acquisition cost standpoint and the sales and customer success and support that's needed to go after, but also retain kind of the SMBs, even the enterprises that maybe aren't their biggest spenders. It's quite a bit on their part. Really having a self-serve solution through SkyFi where they can partner with us and we take care of that distribution channel for them is highly beneficial, because it now enables their sales team to really focus on the governments, like I said, or the really large customers. So we integrate them all via API. So it's we make these connections. So it's machines talking to machines when a customer is looking for either imagery that's been collected in the past. So if you want something that's a couple weeks old or a couple years old, you can get that archive imagery that's just sitting in storage. So it's a way for the companies to monetize that. But then also to what we call in the industry tasking a satellite, where you can command a satellite to get an image in the future, of anywhere in the world with multiple different sensor types. Umbra is one, like you mentioned. They're a radar imagery company that can see through clouds, can see through smoke. So really interesting applications for nighttime imaging. And Albedo is going to be launching here soon. Really excited for them to launch. They're going to have the best-in-class resolution once they're fully operational. So really looking forward to having them as well. But really where we see the kind of the future of SkyFi going to is this data platform and the analytics platform that powers it. The data is great. So sometimes the picture is really all you need, but there's a lot of information that's contained within this data, and being able to extract that with AI, with various computer vision models is really where the industry will go as data becomes more and more commoditized. It's going to be the algorithms and kind of the processing speed that's going to differentiate kind of the winners from the losers on that.
Got it. Yep, we know about albedo. I think we covered them, right, Brandon?
Yep.
VLEO, very low Earth orbit, right?
Rings a bell.
Yep. Yep. Super exciting.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I met Topher once, and hope to have him on the pod soon enough. It's been a busy time for them for sure, but that's cool that you guys have identified this gap maybe in their focus and how you guys can support and aggregate all the data. Talk to us a little bit about the industries. We're curious. There can be so many, I'm sure, different applications of satellite imagery. Where are you guys finding as the key industries you're targeting?
Yeah, so we see a lot within the financial trading sector. So like I mentioned, Bill Perkins, our co-founder, he's a natural gas trader. He's a hedge fund. The idea for this came out of his use case of wanting to get near real-time intelligence about trading opportunities around the world. So I won't go into kind of all of the different things that he looks at, but some pretty interesting stuff around the world. And traders like him are looking for an edge kind of at all times. So this is a way to get alternative data, whether it's for oil and gas trading, looking at port activity, rail activity for supply chain and logistics, being able to understand what market trends may look like and how prices may be impacted in various commodities industries, just by understanding is there a stockpile at a port that is stacking up that has not been shipped yet, or what is the amount of whatever you're looking for from a commodity standpoint? How is that changing over time at various facilities, either being extracted or being shipped, to get an advanced read on really what the supply is going to be in the market to gain an edge on that. So see quite a bit in the financial trading world, insurance applications, as we've seen with the hurricanes over the past couple of months, being able to both understand what was the kind of ground truth prior to the hurricane, and then understanding based on what's happened after the hurricane to do some change detection and comparisons between imagery of what were the actual impacts of that, what was pre-existing damage, what is new damage for that, to help with claims adjusting. Just really understanding the level of impact of some of these storms and where to put disaster relief supplies. And so we saw quite a bit of that after the hurricanes about how to position supplies and where is that support most needed, just based on where kind of how the events played out. Agriculture use cases, both from a crop monitoring standpoint, but also the agricultural commodities. Quite a bit of, really, if you name it from an industry standpoint, like we could probably find a use case for you. Construction, real estate, land development are all some of the ones that come up pretty often. And it's really for anyone who's looking for data that, it's either not scalable to do with a manual verification, or it's just not efficient to do, other ways. We often get compared with, drones and as a potential way to get aerial imagery, but drone's going to require a crew. It's going to require kind of some of that upfront cost to get it set up, as well as the deployment to send someone to a location in order to get that footage. Whereas with the satellite, you may not be able to get the same level of resolution as a drone, but the benefit of it is it's global in scale and very quick to be able to access that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's super fascinating. I like the use case of it for financial traders or, modeling. Like, people will do anything, get as creative as possible to generate alpha some way, somehow, which is awesome. Like, love that. Moving forward here, curious to hear from your perspective as VP of Operations, what are some of the biggest challenges you face in scaling SkyFi services to a global customer base that spans, various industries like you just covered?
Yeah, I think one of the big challenges, which I already touched on, is really the education gap of how do you use the data, and what are the types of use cases that benefit most from geospatial data and analytics, and where how do we manage expectations for customers that are looking for some of those solutions. We get requests all the time for kind of very unique and kind of bespoke solutions for that. Today, we have not dove into being a sort of a solutions provider or a managed services provider, where we're creating various applications for customers. That's where we do see interest as customers are looking for very specific things. So trying to understand and really set the guardrails on how can we provide more for our customers to be able to answer those use cases without diving into really not a very scalable solutions or services based business where we're building custom geospatial dashboards. There's already companies that are well set up to do that. Really what we're looking to do is be able to more closely meet the needs of those customers just from a data and analytics standpoint. So maybe they don't need those custom services, and they're able to do some of that just within the SkyFi platform, which is where we're building out the current product in order to be able to have more workflows within SkyFi, so that we are able to get customers from both the data acquisition side of it, but also they continue their usage within SkyFi, and they don't need to build workflows outside of that or manage multiple different software stacks in order to accomplish what they're trying to do, and really just trying to get that within the platform.
Awesome. And so you guys have seen great growth over these first few years. What do the next 5 years, say 5 years, look like? What are the milestones that you guys are looking ahead at?
Yeah. So I think it's a continuation of the journey really towards serving more of these enterprise customers that are either current or will be purchasers of geospatial data and integrating that into their workflows. We see over the next 5 years as SpaceX and is launching a Starship more frequently now, as we're seeing some of those test flights. And once you have essentially mass unconstrained for putting up sensors, the cost of launch is going to come down quite significantly, which means that the opportunities for satellite companies and that are either in existence or will be launched here are going to be pretty enormous. Just in order to put up sensors that are really going to commoditize data to the point where it's just going to be geospatial data in our view is going to be kind of ubiquitous in every industry, similar to most technologies that start out in the government side of it. Think of GPS, email, the internet, satellite imagery. The government usually comes first, and then the commercial market finds a way to drive costs down to a point where it's adopted much more broadly. So we definitely believe in a future where geospatial data is powering most industries and many decisions on Earth for everyday people without anyone really knowing that that's going on. Just kind of think of GPS. It's started out as precision guidance for missile systems in the past, and now everyone has 2 or 3 GPS devices on them at any given time. We think there's going to be a future where that data, geospatial data, is following a similar trajectory, and being processed at machine speed at scale is going to be powering some really interesting solutions. So our goal is to build SkyFi from a platform standpoint in order to take advantage of that as we build out the analytics capabilities through our partners, what that platform looks like, in order to be the ones that are really feeding all of that data into a single pane of glass, where whether it's a government user or an enterprise user can come and get access data, build reports, build analytics on top of that that meet whatever their use case is. So that's really where we see things going. Is just obviously AI, you can't get away from it from a just a talking point, but also from a technology that's being built out. So we definitely see that as a core driver of what we're going to be doing, and we're starting to make some investments into that area as well.
And so just to take a step back for a second, again, this is a unique industry. So Sam and I are learning along the way here. Curious to put it in real terms, like what would pricing generally look like? Let's say I was an insurance company trying to track a storm for 2 weeks as it builds up and comes to barrels towards Florida or somewhere in the south, for instance. Like any estimate? I'm sure it's customizable, depends on what you're looking for, but any rough ballpark?
Yeah. So just for some ballpark pricing in terms of if you're looking for an image that was captured in the past, so we call that an archive image, you can get that for as low as $25, and that's for a 1 meter resolution image. So that's our lowest price point, and that's for a 5 square kilometer image of a location. If you're looking to capture a satellite image in the future, so task a satellite, you're looking at $200 for a 25 square kilometer area. So it all depends on resolution, the sensor type, the size of the area you're looking for. But typically, the costs have come down quite a bit over the last couple of years, where we're able to offer something at that price point. But I think in the future, I think it's feasible to say that archive imagery may be free in the future, just because it's going to be so ubiquitous and just so commoditized that companies would be making their money off of tasking, or to the point where maybe archive becomes free, because that's
Wow.
you want people to build models off of that, and then make their monay from ordering new images. So, and that's going to continue to come down quite a bit, I believe, as well. So, it's all supply and demand problem right now. There's a kind of constrained capacity for some of the better sensors, but as more and more satellites go up with Starship, as Elon's launching Starshield and a whole bunch of other satellites as well. They have some very interesting capabilities for that. The data is going to be to the point where it's just a commodity, and it's who can process that and build the analytics on top of that. That's going to be the winner of it.
Yeah, that's actually pretty surprisingly affordable, honestly. I'm pleasantly surprised. I feel like if you stand to gain or lose a lot of money by having much more advanced data and information on a storm or any industry, really, like that is very easily justifiable. So that's cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we're looking to wrap up the episode here. I just quickly, maybe you can speak to this a little bit. We usually like to ask a little bit about the fundraising journey and sort of the growth trajectory and the plan with regard to raising more capital. That's exciting. Costs will go down, and the opportunity there with the tasking sounds awesome. Tell us maybe a little bit about that side of things with any fundraising efforts that you guys have in the plans to support your growth, to make sure you're staying out ahead of the competition.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's actually an opportune time to talk about that, as we're recording here in early December. We're officially in the middle of our Series A raise. So if any VCs are listening to this, please reach out, and we'd love to chat with you about that. So we are officially a seed company, or seed stage company, excuse me. We did a pre-seed friends and family round. We did a seed round, which was our first price round, and that was led by Valerian Space Ventures. They've invest kind of across the whole space ecosystem, as well as some dual-use investors that are focused on kind of military and civilian, or military and commercial technology, and the overlap between those. So those were our investors for our seed round. We've filled that with a safe, some additional investment, but looking for the Series A to propel us to the next milestones, which will be work with the government, work with some really large partners, which we're excited to announce here pretty soon, as we're sitting here in December. Which I think by the time this podcast come out, we may have an announcement that's interesting for the users here, which we can maybe plug in a future episode. But some really interesting things that are coming that this funding round will help to spur. Like I said,
awesome.
Investments into additional engineers, AI capabilities, all sorts of the fun stuff that really starts to let us scale the platform as we reach the A round, because that's going to be where the things are really going to kick into gear, is both from an expectation, but also an opportunity standpoint with that funding.
That's awesome. And I know Brandon and I got excited when you said that there could be some news. You could break it a little bit early on VenturePill. We could be the exclusive.
I think I would. Tom from marketing may a little bit more about that too soon. But,
we'll get you back on after the round closes and the big news drops. But that's super exciting, Mike. That's awesome to hear. And we'll see if any venture pilgrims or VC firms listening along might want to to connect with you and Tom and the rest of the team, Luke, the great team over at SkyFi. Before we let you go, Mike, just a couple questions. One we like to ask in every interview that we do, which is just, what advice would you offer to any pilgrims, which is what we call our listeners, that may be looking to start their own business, or even more broadly, just break into the world of venture capital and startups?
Yeah. I guess my advice, and this would be very cliche and probably super obvious, but despite being seemingly obvious, you'd be surprised how often it's not followed. Is really just listen to the customer. I know this is something that was one of Steve Jobs' big sayings. Is it's kind of been something that's been around for quite a while, but it seems that people lose sight of it too. Is the customer is going to tell you exactly what they want, and that's really what you have to focus on. If you keep that is your North Star, and really listen to them and build exactly towards that. They're going to vote with their dollars, and if you're building what they're asking for, those dollars are going to come to you. So I would say you could have the coolest technology in the world and the solve the best science experiment, but if there's not a problem and not a customer willing to pay for it, and really what it is it just ends up as that science experiment. So as you're starting to look at potential companies to start, what are people talking about? Where are they complaining about things? And that's really where you're going to find your opportunity. And as you start building, get feedback. Be humble in accepting that feedback. And if a customer is telling you that something is not meeting their needs, it's not necessarily because you didn't design it correctly, or you're don't have the right idea for what this company could be. It's just they have a very specific need, and then they will give you money if you build that. So, like I said, it's cliche, but I think it's accurate.
No, it is. And I don't think we've received that advice in the dozens of times we've asked folks. And I think it's more given, and usually in the context for me in the sales world, that's obvious. But for folks getting into it, starting to even, it's even more important at the beginning when you're starting something. So I appreciate you mentioning that as your advice to the Pillgrims out there.
Absolutely.
Mike, it's been a great episode. We want to make sure that our listeners can connect with you and follow along your journey, as well as SkyFi, just generally keep in touch with what's going on as you guys raise the Series A. What's the best way for people to stay in touch or connect with you?
Yeah. We'd love to have people follow SkyFi, and happy to connect with folks on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, Mike Panos, Panos. If you want to send a connection request, happy to chat anytime about business opportunities, employment roles, whatever it may be, or just want to chat. But follow SkyFi, SKYFI, on LinkedIn and on X. I'm very active there. Tom from the marketing team he does an awesome job. He's kind of an army of one in terms of content creation, and really putting out a lot of really interesting and educational content. So we get kudos quite a bit for our marketing efforts and kind of what we have online compared to some of our competitors. So definitely check it out. You'll learn a lot. You'll be entertained. So those are the two best areas to find us.
Awesome. Well, we will be eagerly on the lookout for some exciting news, hopefully soon, and be sure to follow along on those sites you just mentioned. Definitely have to shout out our mutual friend, Tom, and your colleague as well, Mike, for setting this up. He's a good friend down in Austin, holding down the fort out there. But really appreciate you coming on, Mike. This was awesome. Great to learn about such a novel industry like geospatial Earth imagery. I know Sam and I love learning about new things, and in the venture world specifically, and this is exactly in that cross section. So appreciate your time, and looking forward to staying in touch.
Yeah, really appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, great chat, Mike. Thanks for listening. Join us next week for another dose of startups and venture capital. And as always, we appreciate our pilgrims spreading the word about the show. Share with your friends and help someone else make the pilgrimage. See you next time.
She told me that she only bumps my music when she's lonely. Thinks my vibe's a little low-key, okie dokie, that's alright, but wait, I don't know how to do